Sam, and I'm talking about the solar eclipse in Leo that's going to happen in the early morning, September 13th. This is going to be very interesting in that the sun, it will be eclipsed in Leo. However, Rahu, the north node, is in Virgo. So again, one of the things about the zodiac, the ecliptic zodiac, is there are no lines in the sky. Planets have a proximity to each other, and in particular with the nodal axis, which is really the points where the sun, moon, and earth and their orbits line up energetically. You can have the north node, for instance, is like 650 of sidereal Virgo, and the sun is at 26 sidereal Leo. That's only like 10 degrees away in the sky, which if you look up in the sky, it's only about that much, it's a little bit. But you have, the sun in Leo and Rahu in Virgo. So I'll talk about the specifics of that, difference in a minute, and also what's different about having the sun eclipsed by Rahu or the sun eclipsed by Ketu. So just to understand though that an eclipse is that energetic point when, or those moments when the orbits of the sun, moon, and earth line up precisely in three-dimensional space, and where those points fall are what are called the lunar nodes. Now, again, sometimes people, they don't really put the nodes or the eclipses into perspective. The nodes, even though they're not grahas with a physical body, like the other energetic planets, like, the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, etc., that are like a object moving around, the nodes are every bit as important in grabbing us and attaching us to a sphere of karma. Think about it, they are the points where the sun, moon, and earth, where their orbits line up energetically. And they're always there. And just like a magnetic field is not visible all the time, just because the nodes are not a physical rock moving around, doesn't mean their influence is not felt. Again, just like a magnetic field, just because we can't see something with our eyes doesn't mean it isn't there. We got to get out of this idea that the only things that exist are things that are visible to our physical world, to our eyes. So, just like a magnetic field, the nodes are always there, influencing. And when planets get near the node, every month, when the moon passes by the nodes, we feel it. As planets pass by the nodes throughout the year, we also feel it. So, we have Rahu eclipsing the sun. Rahu is in Virgo, and Rahu has been in Virgo since September of 2014. So, and it's in Virgo, which is accelerating our relationship to details, organization, managing details, practically working through them. That's what Virgo is about. It's ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of details. Through Gemini, Mercury is about expressing details through language, through media, making videos and putting them online and all this very Gemini kind of thing. Yet, going back and like editing them and making sure they're organized and perfect and structured, and you're not saying stupid things because you're not ahead of yourself. Those things are actually much more indicative of Virgo, where we're very focused and even worried about missing important details. They're actually both related to Mercury, but Virgo is the reflective quality of Mercury, which is more introspective, where we slow down and reflect on the details to perfect them. And Gemini is the quality of Mercury, as I said, that's external, where you see things like speech, communication, language, is very much a quality of Gemini. So Rahu is still in Virgo, and so what Rahu does is it excites a new level of awareness and awakening. You might say karma, but karma is a pretty generic word, but the Virgo area of life is being really exploded, where we're really focusing on where details are not in alignment in our world. We see it culturally with financial systems, the words people are saying, and even personally in our life, organizing things and being very pure and pristine and precise is indicative of Virgo qualities. Leo is the sign before it. So Leo is the sign of the centralized power of, let's say, the government, the king. And again, Virgo comes after Leo. So Leo, as coming before Virgo, shows the power, like for instance, of the government, what used to be the king. Now the government is the king. It's the centralized power. And after that centralized power of Leo, we have all of those details of running the kingdom, which is related to Virgo. So Virgo is all those details of running the kingdom, managing the kingdom, delegating tasks, making sure those things are precise. We can see in the political climate in the U.S. with our election cycle right now, we have, two very important candidates that have really shaken up the race. Now there's a lot of focus on Donald Trump because he's, got the biggest mouth and the biggest opinions in the kind of, sort of Godzilla walking in the middle of the Republican race. But on the Democratic side, there's also Bernie Sanders, who is also a very controversial outsider figure. And you're seeing these people gaining a lot of traction. A lot of those things, we're about to have a big shift. I think this eclipse cycle is going to show much more attention to detail, to what people are saying. I think that's going to benefit Bernie Sanders more than Donald Trump, because for all Donald Trump is bringing, which he does bring, a kind of chaotic, catastrophic, reorienting of the paradigm that no one could have really predicted, which on some level is quite healthy because it's getting these politicians out of their typical, canned responses. But in another sense, it's fueled by just a lot of strong opinions, imprecise, nothing specific about what he would do about anything. And for all of you out there who are going to make all these hating comments about how great Donald Trump is and the fact that I don't think he's so great, you can make the comments, but I'm going to delete them if they're on my YouTube page. I've been doing quite a bit of that. It's kind of remarkable to me how Donald Trump is getting all this credit for straight talk when there is no straight talk. It's just opinions. A lot of opinions. You might agree with his opinions or the general nature of his opinions that, Washington is messed up and I agree with a lot of those things too, but the specifics, particular, on the backs of racist comments and misogynist comments, mainly about women. Here is just another big misogynist moment where in Rolling Stone he's talking about the way Carly Fiorina looks. Has he looked in the mirror lately? Is it like he's attractive? Totally talking about her looks, criticizing them, and anyway, so what Donald Trump, beyond that, there's going to be a lot more consequences, I think, as the sun leaves Leo, and we're much less impressed with this kind of bravado, and just the strongest leader is the one we want. As the sun being eclipsed now in Leo, especially by Rahu in Virgo, we're going to be paying a lot more attention to people's details and what they're saying, and whether or not you can take this sort of braggadocio of, I'll find the best people, and even though I don't know anything specific about anything, I'll find the best people. He's going to start being held accountable for his details. And again, on the Democratic side, you have Bernie Sanders, and I definitely think Bernie Sanders has a lot more to offer than Donald Trump. First of all, he has a record. And he has the details. You want to ask him, what he would do? He has specific details. He has numbers, and he's been doing it actually for a long time. So, not just the U.S. politics, but we can see this around the world, too. We have this big refugee problem right now that's hitting Europe, refugees from Syria, and there's a refugee crisis. Again, this is a issue of governments and details. You can see this playing out this way with how do these governments, which is related to Leo, handle, like for instance, an influx of immigrants. it creates a logistical management problem that people really don't know what to do about it. I should say the governments, and they're responding and reacting in a different, in different ways, and their citizens are also, rising up to, have to decide how to handle this sort of humanitarian crisis with all these refugees. So again, this is a big Leo to Virgo shift. This is Leo to Virgo on a global scale. We can see it very clearly with this emergence of Donald Trump, and now not just Donald Trump, but also Bernie Sanders, which has also thrown a huge monkey wrench into the Democratic race. We're also looking at Hillary Clinton and that email scandal, and how this is, again, very much Leo to Virgo. Leo is, you had power. Virgo is, what did you do when you had it? How did you use your power? What details and delegation and systems resulted from you having power? This is what we're asking Hillary Clinton. This is what we're going to be asking more about Donald Trump as it moves forward. These kinds of things, both parties, I think the two-party system itself is a mess. So I didn't plan on going off on this kind of political rant, but it's there, so whatever. So in addition, we have, Mars is very close to his exact debilitation degree on the eclipse, and Venus is also not far behind. So we have Mars and Venus both in Cancer coming together pretty closely when we have the eclipse. So, neither planet is in very good, dignity. Mars is debilitated, and Venus doesn't have a good relationship with Cancer, with the ruler. So relationships can feel kind of draining and a little bit frustrating, even though we've been very accommodating the last month or so, last couple months actually, since Mars has been in Cancer. A lot of the desire to fight and argue that we might have seen earlier in the summer, or actually for much of this year, has really abated with Mars in Cancer, particularly joined Venus. So you might have seen a lot of peacemaking and peaceful offerings in your relationships with others. But again, some of it might have been coming from a place of compromise, where you're compromising too much of your own integrity or things like that. That's about to change. Again, when Mars goes into Leo, we tend to fight to reclaim some ground that we may have lost, or insist upon more integrity, or, things that we've compromised. So that's just around the corner. Also, what's very important with this eclipse is that it's not only in Leo, which is questioning authority in the world, but also our inner authority and how much confidence we have to really be blazing forward in our life, manifesting the things that we want to manifest, how much confidence we have, how much hope and inspiration we have, in particular because Jupiter has also joined this eclipse. And this actually brings a, very purposeful and, inspirational theme to the times. Jupiter in Leo is about, the consistent vision and power that we have and that we feel, and those things that inspire us. So again, this is also one of the reasons why I think, we have we're finding inspiration in someone like, let's say, a Donald Trump, who just offers strength and confidence without any specific plan or any specific detail, except build a wall, Mexicans will pay for it. Very attractive to think that could happen. We're going to defeat China. China's been beating us. We're going to beat them. I'll get the best people. I know everybody. Look how successful I am. I'm the best person. I know the best people. I'll bring them in. I'll learn the situations when it's necessary. And then we're going to be so strong. We're going to have the strongest budget. Nobody will mess with us. And we're going to do this. And just all this big bravado. Wouldn't it be nice if all that were true? And again, this is what he's playing on more than anything. It has to be, because he doesn't have any plans. He's just saying, it'll be great. Look at how successful I am. Look at how much money I have. Wouldn't it be great if all that were true? This is one of the problems we have to watch with Jupiter. Jupiter is not just, again, people, especially astrologers, get it as Jupiter is spirituality. No, it's not. All the planets are spiritual. Jupiter is belief, which is also religion, and believing in something or someone. And it's not just religion. Religion is not just a church. Many people believe in democracy, or believe in social progress, or it's the same energy. We believe in something, it gives us hope. And one of the things that is a problem with Jupiter energy is hope without discrimination. Just like people who believe in religion blindly, but they don't know how it works. It's not part of something that actually propels them forward in their life. It just gives them this simple, childish faith in something because they're afraid of death or whatever. And whenever you see someone with just big exaggerated proclamations with no details behind it, which is what Trump is doing, he has no details. It's not even a debate. He says, just, I'll get the best people, we'll build a wall, we'll get people to pay for it. Then you know that it's driven by this excessive Jupiter energy. And so, again, this also compels us to do big things. Like, for instance, in my certification course this year, big response, because it's very inspiring to want to learn this big, great teaching. And that's the greatness of Jupiter, is it connects us with a great teaching, if we're so inclined, but it can also connect us to a false teacher, a bad teacher. Following someone blindly is very Jupiterian in nature. So these are also themes that are going on with this eclipse right now. And again, we have an exalted Mercury as well. So Mercury is very powerful in Virgo right now. So we're starting to really, look more critically at, themes in our life. Mercury is about to go retrograde, so you want to get your technology in order and all that stuff as well. With Mercury about to go retrograde, but especially as things progress, we're going to be asking more details from our leaders, more specifics. And again, these things also totally translate into your life, meaning Leo is not just some government, it's your power. The power, the confidence you have. Virgo is not just how government organizes their life and delegates authority, duty, responsibility, but how you do it as well. That's what's more important. All the little details and tasks in your life, your habits, your routines, your diet, all these things have been on the table since Rahu went into Virgo last year. Now with Mercury in Virgo, it's very important because Mercury rules Virgo and it's about to go retrograde. It's a very opportune time to get those things in order. And the last thing I didn't mention yet is that this nakshatra is in Purva Falguni nakshatra. Purva Falguni is ruled by the god called Bhaga, which is the god of delight. And it's where we delight in power. It's good to be the king, and to the king goes the riches. And so it's good to be king, and it's good to sort of luxuriate in what comes as a result. But again, these things can be exploited. There can be hypocrisy, there can be piety, there can be selfishness where we're just looking at our own power and not really wanting to share it. And a good king or a good government or good central power, a good mindset in you is where that energy and that power gets shared. It gets distributed rather than held on to like a government that just serves the power interest and then concentrates power for itself, whether it's around government or business or whatever, rather than distributing the power so that the kingdom can flourish. Again, these are big issues that we're dealing with in the world right now. And Purva Falguni, ruled by the god Bhaga, the god of delight, is the god where, at best, the wealth and the riches are shared with the kingdom and shared with the world. And at worst, they're kept to ourselves. And there's a story from, I believe it's in Mahabharata, it's in several texts, where there was a sacrifice of Lord Shiva's father-in-law, his first wife, Sati. And at this sacrifice, the king's name was Daksha. He didn't invite Shiva and he didn't invite his daughter because he didn't like Shiva and he insulted Shiva. And Sati came anyway and heard this insult. and she threw herself on the fire and killed herself because of the disgrace. And then Shiva came and exacted revenge, and one of the gods at that sacrifice was Bhagha, the god of delight. And what Bhagha did was winked. He winked when Daksha was making fun of Shiva. Shiva, he's no good. He walks around with snakes on around his neck, and da-da-da-da. And Daksha and Bhagha, the god of delight, the god of Purva Falguni, kind of winked like, yeah. And it's this conspiratorial wink that all of the government, that we sense is going on in the government. Where they're all kind of winking like, yeah, we'll get out and say this, but don't worry, we'll take care of you. The lobbyists and the money and the special interests, they're all kind of winking, going, yeah, we'll get out and we'll say this, but behind the scenes, we're in it together, and the heck with what happens. And so what Shiva did is he poked out Bhaga's eyes. When he came to exact revenge for the death of his wife, Bhagha had his eyes poked out because of that conspiratorial wink. So notice how, not just with the government, but notice how ways in your life where you're like, oh yeah, I'm spiritual and I'm this way and that way, but underneath it all, we're in it together and I'm for my tribe and I'm not sharing. And what progressives do, or what liberals do, or progressives, or conservatives, we're all kind of in our own little echo chamber these days. We're saying, yeah, well, people have the right to do that, but don't. But really, underneath it all, we're the right ones. We're on the right side of the issue. We're the ones who are doing it right. The other thing I wanted to mention, last thing about Jupiter is, and I mentioned this I mentioned this as soon as Jupiter went into Leo, is we're going to see a huge backlash against some of the very liberal policies that happened when Jupiter and Venus came together in Cancer in the late spring, early summer. In particular, like the Supreme Court decision about same-sex marriage. That was a big one. And then, everybody, rainbows everywhere. And we had this week as Jupiter became really combust, because Jupiter is very combust on the opposite side of the sun, as I've been talking about. We had this clerk from Kentucky who refused to issue a same-sex marriage license and went to jail. Now she's kind of like a martyr for that cause. This isn't going away. Like I said before, the conservative backlash against Jupiter in Leo is going to happen. It's going to be big. And we're seeing it. We saw it as soon as Jupiter went into Leo, and Obama walked down the street and there were people protesting him with, hateful signs, and, especially about blacks and, things like that. And so this combust Jupiter is very important as well in this eclipse, because Jupiter's also there. And we see that issue playing out even this week with the very important decision of this clerk from Kentucky to not issue same-sex marriage licenses. So that's the general forecast for the eclipse. If you want to also see how this will influence your sign, you can also see the eclipse forecast for all 12 signs. This is for my members, only 1 penny, and you get that, and you also get 2 weeks of forecasts from my member site, and also some other great gifts, videos to help you read your chart and other really cool things, so you can check that out as well.